But you, the WBC, think that you better than everybody, don't you? So since you, the WBC, and you got the green belt, which don't mean it, and real belt is the ring belt, which is free, motherfucker. Who you talking about?
Can you talk about the difficulty of this decision?
Yes, it's very sad. It is very complicated to have to vacate a title, to withdraw recognition of a champion hurts very deeply.
This is what TKO's saying. Why do you have to pay them? Don't pay them. Don't adhere to their crazy.
Terence Crawford calls for a WBC boycott, blasting the organization for its unjust decision to strip Shakur Stevenson of his title. He condemns their overbearing rules, sky-high fees, and arrogant stance, making it clear that the sport deserves better leadership and fairness.
$100,000. What makes you so motherfucking better than any of the other sanctioned bodies? Huh? To that question. What makes you better than the WBO, the IBF, or the WBA?
Terence Crawford goes head-to-head with Mauricio Suleiman, challenging him to take the belt if he wishes. Crawford slams Suleiman for imposing a pointless $100,000 fee on Shakur Stevenson, accusing the WBC president of exploiting fighters for personal gain.
You can take the fucking belt. It's a trophy anyway.
Mauricio Suleiman stripped Shakur Stevenson of his title, following a similar move with Terence Crawford, citing rule violations and unpaid fees as the reasons behind their loss of WBC status. The decision has sparked outrage, with critics questioning the fairness and consistency of the WBC's actions.
On the WBC super lightweight, then he unified and became undisputed in welterweight against WBC champion, who was Spence, in a great fight. He petitioned to fight a final elimination bout in super welterweight against Madrimov and remain champion in welter. The WBC supported him. He did not comply with the rules. Then he moves up to super middle and makes the fight of the century, beats Canelo, makes $50 million or around that. The WBC absolutely is not going to charge 3% of such an amount. We made a very clear 0.6%, which is $300,000.
Shakur Stevenson vented on X, questioning why he's being asked to pay a hefty $100,000 after just settling his previous dues, sarcastically asking if it's because of their issues with Bud Crawford. His frustration boils over as he calls out the WBC's continuous demands. Terence Crawford adds fuel to the fire, blasting officials for living in comfort off the backs of fighters who endure the punishment, only to face more unjust fees for WBC sanctioning.
All that, and guess who gotta pay for it? Us fighters. We paying for y'all to come out here, have the time of y'all life, stay in the best hotels of y'all life, and it's all done on our dime. It's done on our dime. Do that sound right to y'all? It's crazy, ain't it? We the one out there getting battered, knocked upside our head, and every time we step foot in the ring, we gotta pay them a sanction fee like they the government. We getting taxed. It's crazy.
Shakur Stevenson fired back, calling the $100,000 payment a waste, labeling the WBC as crooks who don't deserve it. He expressed his frustration, telling Leilani he'd rather give it to her than the WBC, adding that the organization had no stake in his fight and is clearly rattled by it. "Take your belt. It doesn't define me," he said. Roy Jones Jr. chimed in, stating that regardless of any disputes, stripping a champion's title is both unfair and disrespectful, ultimately tarnishing the WBC's reputation.
That a lot of people were really upset about. And
I don't really want to get too deep into that. All I'm gonna say is it's wrong for him to be stripped if he didn't even defend the title.
Yeah.
That's all.
Chris Manx didn't hold back, blasting the WBC for demanding outrageous fees from Shakur Stevenson, calling the move both disgusting and unfair. He stressed that no matter how much Shakur earns, it's his money, and the WBC has no right to it. Manx argues that the current sanctioning system is deeply flawed and should be dismantled, as it exploits fighters who already endure extreme physical and mental tolls in the ring. He pointed out the irony of athletes facing constant punishment and taking immense risks, only to be saddled with unnecessary financial burdens from organizations like the WBC.
Is as crooked and shady as you can possibly get. And for the WBC to do this now, when sanctioning bodies are under attack, when the sanctioning system is under attack, this is a glaring example about why maybe they shouldn't exist. Maybe they shouldn't be in boxing if you are going to reach into the pocket of a fighter like Shakur Stevenson, ask for $100,000. According to Shakur, there's been no comment on this from the WBC. I asked for one. I talked to a member of their staff, said, tell me what's going on here. And all I've seen is the Instagram post of the WBC saying they were stripping him. To reach into the pocket of a fighter for a fight that you have nothing to do with and asking for $100,000. I don't care how much money Shakur Stevenson made that night. That's his money. That belongs in his pocket. The WBC had nothing to do with it. It is disgusting. Disgusting that they stripped Shakur Stevenson of that belt. And Shakur would be right to never fight for a WBC belt ever.
The WBC first sparked controversy with Terence Crawford when he refused to pay a $300,000 fee after his fight with Canelo Alvarez. Crawford argued he was justified in saying no, questioning why he should fork over such a large sum when other sanctioning bodies like the IBF, WBA, and WBO never complained about the fees he paid them. For Crawford, those organizations simply took their share without issue, exposing the WBC's arbitrary and excessive demands. He made it clear that his purses were his business, and Mauricio Suleiman, the WBC president, had no right to request extra money. Even when Crawford offered the standard 3% of his earnings, the WBC rejected it, insisting on a steep 6%, well above what other bodies asked for. Analysts pointed out that apart from awarding the belt, sanctioning bodies typically contribute little to the fight itself, making their high fees even more questionable.
For me, I think Terence Crawford's well within his rights to say that I ain't giving you $300,000. Why? Like, why am I giving you $300,000? What for? And don't talk about my purse. Like Mauricio Suleiman saying Terence Crawford made 50 million. What's that got to do with you? No. And what I like as well about Terence, he said, look, I gave the IBF money, I gave the WBA money, I gave the WBO money. We haven't heard any of those organizations moan about the amount Terence Crawford gave to them. They're like, oh, we'll take it. Because ultimately, what are they doing? Apart from strapping a belt around your waist, what are they doing? And we'll get to that as well. So he then tried to give the WBC that amount of money as well. They clearly said, no, we're not taking that. We want a bit more. And then they're like, okay, normally we take 3%, but 3% of 50 million would have been too much. So you know what? We'll allow you to pay us 0.6%.
Shakur Stevenson remains undefeated, with no one ever taking his belt in the ring. However, the WBC controversially declared his title vacant after he moved up in weight, claiming his absence created a gap in the division. This move allowed new contenders to vie for the title, despite Stevenson never losing it in the ring. It's important to note that the title was vacated administratively, not through defeat, meaning it wasn't a reflection of Stevenson's skill or record. This distinction underscores that Stevenson's career and achievements remain unscathed, and his undefeated status still cements him as one of boxing's elite fighters.
Be ruled inactive at that weight class. So, despite nobody beating Shakur Stevenson, he is an undefeated fighter. Nobody took his belt. But for whatever reason, the WBC has decided him moving up has created some type of void and have now made and declared his title vacant, allowing the division to successfully move forward with new contenders. So in this case, Stevenson, he didn't lose his belt in the ring. Nobody beat him. He's still undefeated. The title was vacated administratively, which is a difference. And we need to establish the facts from the fiction. So nobody beat Stevenson. It doesn't really hurt his career, his official box rec. And it says he's suspended by the commission indefinitely. So I'm not sure if he has some type of injury, but usually when it says indefinitely, they got to get clearance from a doctor to come back. And again, this could be possibly from his fight with Shakur Stevenson. So this is a developing story, and we'll see ultimately how it plays out, what the WBC officially decides to do in terms of who's next and what's next. So what are the facts? What does this mean? Shakur Stevenson was not stripped for any type of misconduct. Shakur was not penalized per se, and Shakur Stevenson is not suspended. So it simply reflects the WBC has considered him no longer active at lightweight at this time. A bit political. That's the only thing that I can think of. That
analyst Oladipo criticized the WBC's decision to strip Shakur Stevenson of his 135 lb title, calling it both unusual and controversial. Stevenson, an undefeated fighter, had made it clear that his move up in weight was temporary, with plans to return to the 135 lb division. Despite this, the WBC vacated his title, arguing that his inactivity created a void, allowing new contenders to fight for it. Oladipo pointed out that this situation exemplifies the WBC's often rigid and bureaucratic approach. Even though Stevenson's last fight wasn't for the WBC title, the organization still required him to pay 50% of the sanctioning fee, as though it had been a title defense.
Shakur Stevenson blast WBC and responds to being stripped of a 135-pound title. This is a bit wild. It's a bit wild. And the reason it's a bit wild, there's so many different reasons actually, but one of the biggest reasons is that Shakur has always said, I want to go up to fight Tio, but I want to come back down to 135. So basically, he's almost telling the WBC, let me go up there, I will come back down. And with what the WBC are going through right now, and this battle with Zuffa, where, you know, they've got some real big players and power over there, and they're saying F the belts, and WBC are fighting, saying none of the belts mean stuff. The last thing you want to do is have a public spat, a public back and forth with one of the biggest names in boxing right now. Now, Shakur Stevenson is one of the biggest names in boxing. And the thing about Shakur as well, you piss him off, this guy will go straight to social media and make it known that he's pissed off, and that's what he's done.
The analyst finds the WBC's policy excessive, especially considering that Stevenson never lost his belt in the ring. Oladipo also highlights that the WBC's treatment of Stevenson mirrors past controversies with other fighters, showcasing how sanctioning fees and administrative actions often create tension between champions and the organization, while Stevenson's career remains intact, as the administrative stripping doesn't tarnish his undefeated record. It raises valid concerns about the fairness and transparency of the WBC's rules and decision-making process.
For him, or from him, sorry, which was $100,000. Now, a lot of you might say, well, one second, his last fight wasn't for the WBC, it was for the WBO and the ring title. Why did the WBC want any money from him? The WBC have a clause, I think it's either 7.3 or 7.4, yeah, where even if you do not fight for the WBC belt, if you're a champion of their belt, i.e. which Shakur Stevenson was, you have to pay 50% of the sanctioning fee as though the WBC belt was on the line. Does that make sense? Let me see if I can find it. I'm going to find it and read it out to so I'm not paraphrasing, because this is quite important and I think it's a joke. I think it's a joke. I really do. All right. Okay, yeah. All right, rule 7.3. I'm going to put this on the screen as well.
The analyst points out that Shakur Stevenson has consistently stated he is a 135 lb fighter, only moving up in weight for specific, situational bouts. He recently dominated former unified lightweight and WBO junior welterweight champion Teofimo Lopez, further solidifying his position in the division. With a record of 22 wins, 2 losses, and 13 knockouts, Stevenson's achievements speak for themselves. Despite his clear intentions, the WBC acted hastily in vacating his 135-pound title, showing little patience in allowing him to make his next move. Stevenson has repeatedly emphasized that he plans to compete at 135 pounds, unless a special opportunity presents itself.
Shakur Stevenson made it abundantly clear that he's a 135-pounder. He's going up in weight just for situational fights. He just defeated 2-division world champion. former unified lightweight, and now former WBO junior welterweight superstar, Teofimo Lopez, in dominating fashion. He's now 22 wins, 2 losses, no draws, 13 wins by way of knockout. After a beautiful performance, a dominating performance, the WBC, in a rush to do nothing,
Shakur Stevenson has also expressed his willingness to face Lamont Roach, whom the WBC elevated to the number 2 spot at 135 pounds. At no point has Stevenson suggested he plans to stay at 140 pounds permanently. Analysts emphasize that the WBC's rushed administrative actions overlooked Stevenson's plans and his undefeated record, casting doubt on the organization's decision-making process and its treatment of top fighters.
He wants to do next. This dude, Shakur, has told the world, I'm 135 pounds. I plan on competing at 135 unless there's a situation that presents itself. You got Lamont Roach, who you elevated to the number 2 fighter in the WBC at 135. Right? Shakur says yesterday, I'm willing to fight Lamont Roach. We're going to make it happen. Right? Now,
from an analyst's perspective, Shakur Stevenson's move to the 140 pounds division presents more exciting opportunities for the sport, while a return to 135 pounds remains possible. It seems less appealing after his dominant win over former 2 division champion Teofimo Lopez. Analysts argue that the WBO strap and the lineage title he now holds hold greater weight at 140 pounds than they did at his original weight. Competing in this division opens the door to high-profile matchups, including a potential showdown with WBO welterweight champion Devin Haney, which could become one of the sport's most thrilling fights in 2026. The 140 pounds division also boasts other top-tier fighters, offering Stevenson challenging and competitive bouts that would elevate both his career and the sport.
Shakur Stevenson in the 140-pound division, I think there's more attractive fights in the 140-pound division, because if you would have gone back to the lightweight division, Muay Thai would probably be the most intriguing matchup, and I don't know if after beating Teofimo Lopez, that I think that would have been going backwards. I believe that the WBO strap that he got right now and the lineage title that he got on is more valuable in the 140-pound division than going back to the 135-pound division. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that he could also petition to beat the WBO mandatory to the welterweight champion in the WBO in Devin the Dream Haney. I think that would be an attractive matchup in 2026 following that type of performance versus Teofimo.
While Keshin Davis currently holds the WBO mandatory position at 140 pounds. A fight with Stevenson seems unlikely, showcasing the tension between mandatory obligations and more enticing matchups. Overall, analysts believe Stevenson's move to 140 pounds is a strategic one that benefits his legacy, positions him for greater challenges, and paves the way for more exciting bouts for fans, all while preserving his status as one of boxing's top undefeated fighters.
Those are the four kings, the Fab Five, whatever you want to call it, and I think that's just better for the sport of boxing. That's better for Shakur Stevenson, and I think that's a very winnable fight right there. We know that Keyshawn Davis is in WBO mandatory position right now in the 140-pound division, but we all know that they're not going to fight. So, we all could keep on asking Keyshawn and Shakur, when you going to fight? Are you going to fight? Both of these guys already saying they're never going to fight again. So, Keyshawn Davis is going to be moving up to the 147-pound division, right? So, unless that Tank was active at 135, that's the only fight that the world want to see at 135 is a Shakur versus Tank. We're not going to see Kid Austin versus Shakur Stevenson at 135. That, you know, the Kid Austin, you know, he lost that opportunity.
That's a wrap for today's video. Stay tuned for more, and we'll catch you next time.